My mama's working Venezuela, mama like Cinderella, mama's got a chunga, yeah. I say hola, 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 bossa nova. I say yeah, 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 yeah. I got a chunga, yeah. Daddy just marijuana, daddy smokes marijuana, daddy's got a chunga, yeah. My daddy wrote Don Quixote, daddy wrote El Quixote, daddy's got a chunga, yeah. I say no, 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 no more tequila, no. I say yeah, 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 yeah. I got a chunga, yeah. Mama swims in Argentina, mama's got a chunga, yeah. My mama's working Venezuela, mama likes Cinderella, mama's got a chunga, yeah. I say hola, hola.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Planet Lizzdom. I know it's a little bit later in the day. We were supposed to start for 9 p.m. tonight, and it's now 9:20. What can I say? Technical difficulties happen. You roll with the punches, and you go with the flow, and you still do what you can to make it happen. And I'm really glad to say I'm here tonight to make it happen. And I couldn't be more excited to be with you guys this evening. I always say it every week that I have a very special guest for you, and you know what? It's always the truth. And this week, I am so honored to introduce to you an amazing writer. I have enjoyed this person's book twice now. It is called I Used to Live on Banning Street by Deborah Donahue. She's amazing, and she's a wonderful writer, and she's a real mensch. You know, we dealt with a lot of technical fun this evening, and we made it through, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her and to her amazing book. Everybody, please give a very warm welcome to Deborah Donahue. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you, Liz?
Good. I am so happy you were able to join us this evening. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was a little touch and go there for a few seconds, but we managed to make it through, thankfully.
Absolutely. Well, it was one of those things where perhaps 20 years ago, I might have been in a corner crying, unable to troubleshoot and figure out what to do. But I have to tell you, after this pandemic, I am really good at dealing with chaos.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm so excited to be here with you tonight and laugh because I have to say, getting to know you as a person has been so wonderful, but getting to know you as a writer through reading your book has been so much more exciting. There are so many things I want to touch on, and I know I sent you a list of questions earlier tonight, and I may go off script a bit because I'm really, really, really stoked about what you've written here. For those of you who may not know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Deborah Donahue, and I was born and raised in Thunder Bay, Ontario, my hometown, where I still reside to this very day. And I was a certified personal trainer for 10 years and a Stop Pilates trained Pilates instructor. But I started writing my book, and I kind of let all that sort of slide to the wayside as the more and more I got engrossed in writing my book. I just sort of focused on that and kind of let all that kind of go. And it was 7 years in the making. So it was. It started off as a fun project through a suggestion of one of my friends. And I thought in the beginning it was just a fun thing to kind of do to pass the time. And then it became more serious. And then I thought it was done at chapter 21. I thought it was done then. But the book just sort of seemed to write itself. And so I had always done journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I just started journaling in 1995. I just got a notebook and started writing about stuff, never with the intention of someday writing a book. That never even entered my psyche. And I wrote about everything, stuff that happened in the past, conversations, you name it. I just wrote about everything for some reason. I guess it's kind of a cathartic type of thing to do. And sort of like to get in touch with your feelings and stuff like that. And I just kept doing it. I think I've got like 17, 18 volumes of journaling. And so I started off with that. And so I guess I always kind of wrote poetry, and I got a few songs that I've written to and things like that. So it's just writing was just my nature, that my artistic nature. I'm a Pisces, by the way.
Okay.
So, Pisces are typically artistic. And back in the day, I used to play classical guitar, and I took lessons at Lakehead University and everything. And
Wow.
And, back when I thought I was going to become the next Leona Boyd.
Okay, I could see it.
And then I just sort of lost interest in that for some reason. And so I thought music originally was going to be my artistic endeavor in life. But turns out it was writing all along, and kind of didn't even know it until it sort of snuck up on me one day.
Well, I have to say, reading this book and learning that you are trained in classical guitar, it does explain your love for music.
Mm-hmm.
Because something that I noticed right off the top of right at the beginning of reading your book is that you use music as a vehicle for pushing the narrative a lot. There's actually an introduction that chapter 1, just for me, really sets such an amazing tone for this book, guys. It's like, imagine Wonder Years meets A Bronx Tale meets Sid Vicious. There's a real edge to it, but a real innocence. And within the first page, I had goosebumps, and I would love to read this if that's okay with you.
Sure, yeah.
I have it on my little Android Kindle here, one of the greatest things ever invented. It says, when my family and I first moved to Banning Street, ABBA was big, and we were all grooving out to Leo Sayers' hit song, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, on the radio. In my mind, ABBA is still big and always will be, and all you have to do is watch Muriel's Wedding to reaffirm that fact. Only about 4 blocks long, Banning Street ran through what at that time was a predominantly Italian neighborhood. Most, if not Italian people, are Roman Catholics, and many are deeply religious. And I'd like to live near their church, St. Anthony's Roman Catholic Church, which was right on the corner of Banning and Dufferin Streets. Therefore, pretty much every second or third household on Banning Street had an Italian family living in it. And within that first page, I could absolutely picture myself on that street, hearing the music, and just picturing the age of innocence, you know. And I read in a couple of interviews, one specifically in Off the Shelf, that you use a lot of music quotes in your book. And I didn't really realize that until I started really getting into your book. And you use music a lot, and it's wonderful.
I just thought to use partial lyrics of certain songs of the era of the 80s sort of helped to enhance the storyline in certain parts. And I actually got denied 4 songs. Most these bands don't own their songs anymore. They're typically owned by a publishing house like Hal Leonard or Albert Music Publishing. And you have to write to these publishing houses. Well, first you have to find out who owns the songs. And that in itself was about 4 months of intensive work. So you have to write to these publishing houses and ask for the permission. And then if you get the permission, you have to send an excerpt of a page before, an excerpt of the page with the lyrics, and an excerpt of the page after, so they can kind of figure out what kind of context you're using the lyrics in.
Okay.
And there's one chapter in my book called Live Wire, and I wanted to use partial lyrics of 2 Motley Crue songs, which was Live Wire was one of them, and Home Sweet Home was the other. And I was so surprised when I got the email back. I think it was from Hal Leonard. And the first part of the email said, absolutely not. And you must take these lyrics out of your publication immediately. And the reasoning behind it was they said my book was too racy.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're talking about Motley Crue. Like, hello.
So the book's too racy?
Too racy. And at first I was really PO'd about it because I really, really wanted at least Live Wire in there. And I was really kind of, ticked off about it. But then after I thought about it for a while, I thought, maybe that's not such a bad thing. They're saying they can't handle my book because it's too racy.
Yeah.
That's kind of a compliment to me. So I thought, that's fine. I can handle racy. That's good. I like it.
That is a huge compliment. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. I wonder if Hal Leonard blushed a little bit, because I will be perfectly honest. There are some parts that are pretty racy and raunchy. I had to fan myself a couple of times reading some of these chapters. It was,
Yes.
Danny, the protagonist, leads a very interesting life, which, I think it is truly the highest compliment that Motley Crue would be a little bit concerned about having their lyrics involved in your book. that is the stuff of legends, I think. Now, it's interesting, your use of lyrics is fantastic. Pink Floyd's Run Like Hell, I read in your interview with Top Shelf, I think that they really did give you a run for your money to get permission.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because Hal Leonard owned 50% of the song. And I'm going, okay, and because it took a while to even figure that out. And, because sometimes if you Google lyrics, you go to the end, it'll say Warner Chappell or whatever, but that's not always who owns the rights to the songs.
Okay.
So you've got to figure it out and do some detective work. So I finally figured out that Hal Leonard owned 50%, and I'm going, okay, well, who owns the other 50%? Well, we don't know. And I'm like, how can you not know who owns the other 50% of the song that you own?
Yeah.
So there was a guy that worked there called Carter Manley, and he really helped me out a lot. And it took about 2 months of really detective work and him helping me and me writing letters to all these other publishing houses And at one point I thought, just like the Motley Crue lyrics and the Led Zeppelin lyrics, I thought I was going to have to take them out. And I was so disappointed I lost those other lyrics. I didn't want to lose that one either, even though I'm only using the chorus, run, 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 run. I just didn't want to lose any more lyrics. So finally we figured it out, and I was just so relieved and so happy. If I had Carter Manley in the room with me, I would have given him a big kiss on the cheek. Like, I was just so happy that we, finally figured it out after about 4 months of, going back and forth. It was just crazy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have to say that is true commitment to your craft. That's true dedication to including something so important to your story. Just for anyone who hasn't read this book yet, from what I gathered, it is a coming of age story of Danielle. She's a very she's, I guess, what you would call a wild child, but she's probably the most behaved of the wild child gang, because she ends up the books, for anyone who hasn't read it, the book starts with her getting involved with what you would call today a girl gang, and I'm trying to remember the girls' names, but they're pretty badass. I think there was Lisa, Chetta, I think it was Candace. I'm trying to remember.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, there's this one scene where, they sit Dani down and they give her the worst perm ever, and they pierce her ear with this pin with the little ball on it, and they just take the edge off of it. Like, oh, I couldn't believe it. I was like, these girls are, they're my
they were pretty badass girls, that's for sure. For grade 8, that was,
Oh, for grade 8, that's a big deal. I didn't really hit my bad phase until probably grade 9, but grade 8, I was still pretty innocent. But I love the story of them going to the arcade and the one girl cutting the other girl's hair, and the cops are coming by and she's like, "What? I'm cutting hair." I thought the story was great. You really can't make this stuff up. I imagine that a lot of these stories probably do come from your childhood, because I did read that Danielle was based on a girl that you grew up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't remember if there was a name for her, but does she know that she's an inspiration to this story? Like, has she read the book?
I'm not sure if she's read the book or not. I kind of lost touch with her many years ago. But I am friends with her brother on Facebook, so maybe I should shoot him a message and ask him if she's ever read the book or not yet.
It'd be really cool. It would be interesting to see if, she identifies with any of this character.
Mm-hmm.
Because I personally do. Like, I really, reading this, there was so much of myself that I saw in her. And I don't know if any other, women reading this book, would read it and go, "Oh yeah, you know what? I was totally bad that way." Or, "Oh yeah, I had those relationship issues," or, that bad perm.
Oh yeah. I think we've all experienced the bad perm at one point or another back in the day.
Yeah. It was the 80s. Actually, something that I really loved about your writing style was that you, and I don't know if anybody else had noticed this, but your slang and the turns of phrase that you use for Dani at each age are so appropriate for her. In the beginning of the book, you have her speaking like she is 14 years old, and as she gets older and becomes 18, all of a sudden her language matures. But it's she's still using slang and lexicon from the 80s. I thought that was really, really neat. And all of a sudden I'm so excited about it. I don't remember the words that I wrote down, but I think she referred to sex as boinking.
Oh, yeah.
I had a good laugh about that. And I really appreciated that element of your writing. I thought that actually added a lot of heart to the story and a lot of realism to it, because I could actually picture myself, in the arcade with her and her friends, hearing this conversation, seeing this nonsense going on.
Yeah.
I really, the story really, really spoke to me, because, I find a lot of coming of age stories do not come from a girl's perspective. And when they do, they tend to be very clean cut and pretty and polite. And, I don't know very many pretty and polite women. I know women who are, surly, who drink till 5 a.m, who stole a car with their friends, who did a lot of the things that Dani did in this book. And then maybe at some point decided to grow up or not.
Mm-hmm.
When you were writing this book, did you feel a sort of did you have a relationship with these characters? Because you did write it for, I think, about 8 years.
Yes, I did develop quite a relationship with these characters, and thinking up names for the characters was another endeavor. You want to pick good names that people are going to, relate to and identify. And I think the best name I picked out for one of the characters of the book was Stealth Swagger.
Yes, I love that name.
The up and coming rock star.
Yeah. Now, was he the lead singer of No Benevolence?
No, he was the lead singer of Dillinger.
That's it, Dillinger.
And he was the one that got the cake in the face on stage.
Yes.
And he's Stealth Swagger is a combination of two quote unquote rock star guys that I know that lived in Thunder Bay. And yeah, so I was trying to think of a name that was like commanding, that commanded attention, that was like very masculine and noticeable, and all I kept coming up with was Stealth B-52 bomber.
Okay.
That's all that kept coming. I don't know why. Stealth B-52 bomber. And then I thought, why do I keep thinking that? It just wouldn't leave my brain for some reason. Then I thought stealth. And then I thought, guys who are lead singers and are up on stage, sometimes they have that, I'm it kind of, here I am, ladies, I'm the bomb, I'm hit, feast your eyes upon me. They have that swagger on stage, like, they're hot, they know it. And here I am for your feasting eyes only. And so that's how the last name of Swagger came up. So it was a combination of Stealth B-52 bomber and the surly attitude of most lead singers out there that I've seen on stage.
Well, I think to be a lead singer in, any kind of band, especially, the more hardcore it is, you do have to have a lot of swagger,
Oh yeah, you have to have that confidence to get up in front of people night after night, for one thing,
Absolutely.
So yeah, so for sure.
And some of these guys do it sober. That really blows my mind. Not that, I couldn't handle being on stage, but night after night to get all of that energy. And, that's something I also really liked about your story, that it was honest. It was honest that, people in the rock and roll scene very often will drink. Very often they will do drugs. Maybe they will do them together at the same time, and it's not the smartest idea. And I liked that your tales weren't necessarily cautionary and condescending, but they were very normal and human, that, perhaps maybe they shouldn't have done that, but we did it anyway,
Yeah.
My heart.
It was the carefree days of the 80s.
It was. And, I have to say, I'm really glad that I did all of my stupid and ridiculous things before cell phones, when it was the stuff of legends and highly romanticized. Because now everything is recorded, so you can't pretend that nothing ever happened.
Yeah, you can't get away with too much nowadays.
No,
you never know who's clicking behind the scenes, kind of thing.
Absolutely. And that's where I'm really curious about, performers now, because, you're always on stage. Even when you go to the grocery store, you're always on stage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, very quickly, I just wanted to show this. Jim, one of our top fans here and one of my good friends, he's told me that he's just purchased your book. Thank you, Jim. And he loves to reminisce. He loves Aquanet and all. So I'm really looking forward to his review. Thank you, Jim. He is a really amazing person. He does an amazing show called Crush Corner now on Monday. So I highly recommend you watch it. He's amazing people. He's part of our wicked rock and roll circle. But speaking of rock and roll, and I'm always interested in, origin stories and influences and that sort of thing. Throughout your book, you do have all of these quotes from different songs. And actually something I plan to do is, the third time I read this, make a playlist of all those quotes in order so that I can hear these songs while I'm reading the book. Were you listening to these songs while writing, or did it just happen to find its way into your narrative?
No, they just happened to find their way into my narrative. The arcade one with Fire, the song Fire.
Yeah.
That was actually based on a real character that hung out at the arcade. And I never thought during the process of this book that I would be dealing with Bruce Springsteen's lawyers.
What?
Yes. For the song Fire, which was made famous by the Pointer Sisters back then, but it's actually Bruce Springsteen's songs, I had to send, 200 American to Grubman, Shire, Marsalis, and Saks in New York City. And I got a letter back from them saying, you know, our client has agreed that, you know, you could use, and it was just for the chorus. And when we kiss, ooh, fire. That's all I used of the song. But, you know, you can't, you know, mess around with copyright.
Yep.
And you have to respect other people's work and, you know, other artists' work. And I wanted to make sure that I did everything by the book that way. And yeah, so I actually dealt with Bruce Springsteen's lawyers just for one chorus of the song. Actually, no, it was actually 400 American for that one chorus.
Wow.
Yeah, so it cost a lot to have those lyrics in my book, but I thought it was worth it. So,
well, I have to say, prior to meeting you and, you know, learning about all of this, I didn't realize that you had to pay to use a lyric like that. You know, in my innocence, I thought, well, if you just footnote it and give it credit, you can do that. But you've taught me something new. So if I want to quote Bruce Springsteen, I better save up my money.
Yes,
Do that.
you're allowed to say the title of the song and the artist, but you're not allowed to use any lyrics.
Okay,
Yeah.
and lyrics.
So like I mentioned, Leo Sayer and his, you know, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing. Actually, I wanted to use the lyrics of that too, but I decided to take that out because it was just getting too costly. And I thought it was okay just to mention him, the title and his name, and it seemed to work out fine in that respect. So
Absolutely.
I didn't want to dish out any more money than I already had, to be perfectly honest.
I know the cost of doing business, eh?
Oh yes.
But I have to say, I do like that, you know, you used it in your introduction. You kind of eased us into the idea of those lyrics and, you know, quotations being there. You know, if you could give yourself any advice, you know, because I know you were telling me that you had, I think, 2 complete edits and 1 final proofread for this book, which is just, that is a lot of work. Were there any things that were cut out of your book that you would love to explore in a new book?
Not really. I had 2 editors. So the first editor seemed to like everything the way it was. The second editor, it was kind of strange. She was trying to change everything like it was her book. And I didn't really like that part too much. And so she was trying to take things out a lot, certain paragraphs and things like that. And she wanted to completely change the ending. And I was almost going to go with her version of the ending. And then at the end, I thought, no way, this is my book, this is my project, and I'm not going to do it. So everything is pretty much in there the way I wanted it. The editors kind of did enhance certain things, though, that I wouldn't have looked at it in that respect. Like, they helped me to look at certain things differently. And so that was a really good process. That was really a good part of the process, actually. And but it was so tedious. It is so beyond tedious to do editing. And then I had to learn how to use this program on Microsoft Word. It's called Track Changes. I didn't even know it was there until they sent me back my manuscript. And when they send it back to you, there's blue highlighting and yellow highlighting and red tick marks, and you have to clean it all up and send it back just plain black and white. And I never used track changes before. Like, I'm not the most, you know, smartest person when it comes to technology and learning something new. I mean, it's one thing to take a computer course when you want to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing when you get something thrown at you and it's like, well, here, you got to use this now. And it's like, I was going crazy. I was going out of my mind for about 3 days. I was phoning my project manager, flipping out. And then I just thought, okay. And I just played with it and played around with it and played around with it until I finally got the hang of it. But that was like so maddening. It was, yeah. I was not a happy camper when it came to that time, that's for sure.
Well, I'm so curious because, your book is 198 pages long. How do you not fall out of love with your project and fixing up all those errors? How do you stay focused on what you're trying to say?
Well, that's another part of this writing process. It probably wouldn't have taken 7 years if I hadn't been such a perfectionist. There were times where I would change a sentence or a paragraph because I thought it sounded better, and then I would change it again, and then I would change it again, and then sometimes after changing it 3 times, I would end up changing it right back to the way it was originally. Like, I drove myself crazy doing this. I don't know how many times throughout this book, and even during the editing process too, it was the same thing. It was change, unchanged, change, unchanged, and I don't know if any other writers go through this. I'm sure they must. And I mean, it's your baby, it's your work, it's you, and you're going to release it out onto the world someday. So for myself, I just wanted it as perfect, close to perfect as I could possibly get it in within my head and my standards, kind of thing. So it really can drive you kind of crazy sometimes, though. and sometimes, I'd be almost like falling asleep, and then all of a sudden, boom, my eyes would pop open. It's like, oh yeah, it would just click in my head. I have to get out of bed, go to my computer, and type it in before I forget, and things like that. So yeah, it was a very all-consuming project, I must admit, now that I look back. And it seemed to, at the time, it just seemed like it was just taking forever.
Mm-hmm.
But now, it just seems like when I look back, it went by so quick. But during the whole process thing, I was like, especially when the editing stuff, I was like, is this ever going to end? Am I ever going to get done? Like, it just seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel in those days. But I made it through, so I'm glad I stuck it out.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you stuck it out too, because it is such a well-written book, and it's worth it, the madness of the creative process. And you're absolutely right, Jim. Perfect description of the creative process, madness and beautiful. It is. It's rare that I come across an artist that hasn't gotten up at 4 a.m. because something popped into their head, and all of a sudden they're manic. They're like, if I don't get this out now, it's never going to happen. And all of a sudden it's 6 a.m. and you're bedraggled, and you're like, well, I have to go to work now, or I have to do this, and you're so mad that you have to stop what you're doing, even though you haven't slept in 3 days.
Right. Yeah.
Madness.
Or you're constantly writing things on scraps of paper or whatever you can get your hands on. You're driving down the road, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, okay, I should have said it like that. And then you're hunting around for a pen as you're driving, and trying to scribble something down on anything you can find, kind of thing. And yeah, so it was I can't believe when I look back on how it was. But yeah, it was a lot of work, but now it seems like it was fun. At the time, it didn't seem like it was fun at all.
I can well imagine. I mean, I'm still really impressed that you released this during, a pandemic, during lockdown. What brought you to that point where you said, I'm ready, let's release this?
When it was released, it was March, and the pandemic was just kind of starting to hit. Mm-hmm. Like we had no cases here in Thunder Bay at all. You were just starting to basically hear about it spreading throughout the world, but there wasn't any cases here in Thunder Bay for quite a while, actually. And so I didn't think the pandemic would get as bad as it did. Since we had no cases here at all, I thought, oh, Thunder Bay is in a safe zone. I guess I was in this denial thing. Oh, Thunder Bay is in a safe zone. It won't make it here. But eventually, yeah, it did make it here. And so that was really disappointing because I had a big book release party planned at Black Pirates Pub. It's like a heavy metal bar here in Thunder Bay. And I had a band all picked out, and I wanted to, have it catered and stuff. And then the pandemic hit, and then that kind of went by the wayside. So I didn't get to have my book release party. So that was quite the bummer, but hopefully someday.
I was going to say, at some point, I hope that you do have a book release party in Alcoholic Central, which is a big scene, a big place in this book. And when you read it, you'll understand why that's funny. But I truly hope that you do actually get to have the book release party that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you truly deserve all the accolades, because it's so well thought out, and you can tell that you did take your time editing it and writing it, because there is an evolution of the characters. And I find there is even an evolution of the characters that come in and out of Danny's life. The women that she falls out with, the women that she connects with again. Poor Wes. Oh my gosh. He just never got it, ever. I will never look at a balcony again without thinking of him. Oh, poor Wes. And Zach, stupid Zach. But that's okay. You really, for me, I grew to love Danny as a character, and I really, really felt for her. My new favorite thing to say now is that I've gone full potato when I get really mad. Seriously, I used that word today. I was like, I'm about to go full potato, and nobody understood what that was about. But I forget what my point was. The characters are so rich. They really are so rich. I'm sure someone has asked you at some point, how autobiographical is this story? Is it?
Whenever somebody asks me that, I just say it's loosely based on nonfiction. Let's just put it that way.
Well, you were saying that you worked in the bar scene and that you heard a lot of stories and saw a lot of things.
Oh yeah, I was a bartender for many years. Yeah, many years. And you do see some things when you're a bartender, that's for sure.
Oh, yes. I worked in the bar industry for a long time. There are certain things you cannot make up.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I love that, quite a few of the stories in this book, I could believe experiencing in a bar or seeing at a party, that actually makes a lot of sense. And I don't want to give away all of the adventures, but it is, it is worth a read, guys. And I highly recommend you get this book, because anyone who has had a rich and colorful young life in the bar scene and partying and rock and roll will appreciate this very, very much. If you could give advice to 20-year-old you, what would your advice be?
I think my advice to 20-year-old me would be straighten up and fly right. Straighten up, even just a little bit. There was nothing but just tomfoolery, parties. Nothing was serious. I think advice I would give to 20-year-old me would be plan for your future.
Okay.
Think about your future, plan for your future. And because when I was 20, I wasn't thinking about anything, a future or anything. It was just, living for that moment, living for that next party, living just to hang out with your friends. And, there was no social media or cell phones back then. There was more like actual human interaction.
Yes.
People actually talked to one another on the phone and stuff like that back then. And it was more, I think people had more personable relationships back then. Now it's all social media, Facebook. It seems like nobody wants to talk on the phone. nowadays, I mean, you ask somebody to phone you, and it's like they don't want to.
Yeah.
They just want to talk on Messenger or text, and I find that very odd. But I'm old school, so that's how I grew up. You actually picked up the phone and called somebody when you want to talk to them. So yeah, it was a different time for sure.
Well, now if you call someone, it's an emergency.
Yes. Yeah,
My neighbor called
exactly.
me the other day, and I missed the call, and I called back, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? He's like, I'm just calling to see if you have any, Grey Poupon. And I'm like, why are you calling me for mustard? I thought we were broken into. Send it as a text. It was a very modern experience because when I was a kid growing up, you had the one phone in the kitchen with a really long cord.
Yeah.
And your conversation in front of everybody. It was a rotary dial.
Oh yes, yes.
If you could walk around the corner and really whisper really quietly,
Yeah, yeah.
That's it.
Exactly. It was mounted on the wall. There was no escape.
And the cord inevitably got so bunched up that it would just be like this little ball of plastic.
Yeah. Yes.
You'd be sitting there dangling the phone while someone was going on and talking. You're like, oh yes,
Yeah. Got to untangle that cord every once in a while.
Oh my gosh, it got bad.
Yeah.
I was so curious. I actually Google mapped Banning Street because I wanted to see what it looked like. Now, I couldn't figure out, was there a reason why you chose the name Banning Street?
It was a street that was centrally located in the neighborhood where I grew up. So it just seemed like the appropriate name to use. It was because in that area, there's Crown Street, then Banning Street, then Seacourt Street. No, there's Crown, Banning, Ontario, Seacourt, and then Algoma. So none of those seem to have like a rhythm or a rhyme in their names, but Banning Street just seemed to have that flow off your tongue type of title. So yeah.
It really does. There's a charm to it. And even just looking at it on Google Maps, I could kind of picture the different houses and the buildings and the different balconies. And I could actually picture myself there in the time, I grew up in a very small town, so I absolutely relate to being, in a small area and then a very condensed area in Toronto. So my ability to kind of imagine different scenarios and different environments is a little greater.
I know Thunder Bay is a city, but I've always felt like it's a small town for some reason. I don't know why. To me, Thunder Bay seems like a small town. I don't know. I guess maybe because I've been to Toronto and I've been to the bigger cities. I don't know. But I mean, we're 110,000.
Okay.
I know that's not a town, but I don't know. I've always felt like Thunder Bay is a town. And it's funny, like whenever I used to go and hang out in Toronto and stuff, people would always say, "Where are you from? Where are you from?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm from Thunder Bay," and they'd be like really puzzled, like, "Really?" Like, I guess we talk with an accent here, apparently. A friend of mine moved to Toronto years ago, and he said he got the same thing. People would always ask him, "Where are you from? Where are you from?" And he'd say Thunder Bay, and he said, "Debbie, do you know we talk with an accent?" And I said, "No, I didn't know that." And he goes, "Well, apparently we do," because he got the same thing when he moved to Toronto many years ago. So yeah.
That's very interesting. I'm going to have to listen a little more closely now because I did not notice. I know when I go to the States, I'm told I say a boot and sorry a lot.
Yes.
But I'm not sorry. I guess, before I forget, I did want to ask about you're writing a screenplay about this story,
Yes.
which is really, really exciting to me. I mean, if you could choose your casting characters, who would you choose to play Danny?
Jillian Dormandy. Jillian, she's on Boardwalk Empire. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly. Jillian Dormandy?
I think so.
Yeah, she's off Boardwalk Empire. She's that redheaded girl off Boardwalk Empire. I think I would get her to play Danny. Yeah.
Very cool.
She's about the only one I can think of, actually. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious to know, how do you find writing a screenplay versus writing a book?
Oh, it's a totally different animal. It's you have to think in images. I haven't taken like a course in screenwriting or anything, but I got this book a few years back. I was at Chapters, and it was a choice of, there was 3 books, and I picked this one, and I'm so glad I did. And his name is Sid Field, and he's from old world Hollywood, when Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz and Albert Hitchcock and all the old, Hollywood was around. And there was this college in California, I can't remember what it was called, but he used to teach screenwriting classes there. And Dustin Hoffman and Lucille Ball used to teach acting classes there. I think it was called the Berkeley College of Fine Arts or something. I can't remember. And so he's been around for a while. And I'm so glad I picked his book, because he really knows what he's talking about. And one of the things he said in the beginning of the book is, and this is what whenever I watch a movie now, I'm always looking at detail, like when the opening credits and the start of the movie, I'm always like watching now to see, is there seagulls chirping in the background? Is there screeching of tires? Is there children laughing, screaming? I'm always watching that now. And one of the little exercises he said to do in the book is, when you're watching a movie for the first time, try to like imagine in your mind why you continue watching that movie. Like, what is it that's holding your interest in that movie? Or as opposed to you getting bored with it in 10 minutes and shutting it off and saying, this is a crappy movie, I don't like it. And so whenever I'm watching a movie now, I'm always aware of what is going on in the background, even is there waves lapping up against the shore, even stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's a totally different thing. You have to think in images, and it's going to be 100 times harder than writing a book. And so I started that. And actually, he said, Sid Field said you have to start with the ending.
Oh,
yeah, which I just got to a little while ago. And you have to start with the ending. And was like, okay, that's different.
Okay.
Yeah, so I scribbled out a few pages of an ending that I wasn't really prepared for or thinking that I had to do in the beginning. And I just thought, okay, I'm just going to scribble it out the way I think it should end now. And if I need to change it later or make changes to it later, that's fine. But so it's going to be 100 times harder than writing a book, because you have to think of images.
Wow.
And you have to, what did he say? Is it over 370,000 screenplays get submitted to the Screen Guild every year? And out of those, only 400 to 500 actually get picked for projects. So you better make the first 10 pages of your screenplay pretty darn good, or else it's just going to get thrown onto the pile.
Wow.
It's not going to be an easy racket to get into. Well, we'll take, for instance, Good Will Hunting,
mm-hmm.
Matt Damon and I can't think of his name right now. My mind just went blank. Ben Affleck. They wrote that screenplay, and it took them 7 years.
Really?
To finally sell that screenplay. Wow. Yeah, and it was only, I think, when they started becoming actors, famous actors, that people started taking notice. But in the beginning, nobody wanted it. Nobody was interested. Yeah, so
and it's such an excellent film.
Yes, it is. It's like one of my all-time favorites. I can't believe couldn't remember Ben Affleck's name. But actually, I just seen it on TV again the other night for probably like the 30th time or whatever.
Yeah.
And Yeah, so I'm always watching movies like that now and trying to see like how the script writer immersed himself into writing this script. Like I'm always thinking, like how did he describe this scene?
Right.
How did he go into this screen, the intro for this screen, and the fade out, and then the fade into the other scene, and yeah, it's not going to be an easy thing, but I thought, hey, if I can write a book. And actually, another thing Sid Field describes in his book is not everybody who's a novelist can be a screenplay writer. Case in point, F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Oh.
He wrote The Great Gatsby, and he was quite, a revered novelist, but he decided to try his hand at screenwriting. And he just could not get it for some reason. And he wrote a screenplay for, I can't remember what it was. And he wrote the screenplay, and then he changed the beginning of it. And Sid Field said he should have left it, but he had a really hard time switching to that genre of writing from being a novelist to a screenplay writer. Like he just didn't get it. But I guess, back in his time, there wasn't books available like, what we have now for screenplay writing for dummies or the one I have from Mr. Sid Field and things like that. So he was just basically on his own. There was no, YouTube videos back then there was nothing. There was no internet. The guy was just strictly on his own trying to figure it out. And apparently according to Sid Field, he kind of didn't. And then he didn't really, I think he only wrote like one or two screenplays and then he passed away. So he didn't really like delve into that for too much longer. So yeah, not everybody who's a novelist can be a screenplay writer. So I'm just going to try my best and see what happens. You never know.
You never know. And I, based on what I've already read so far, I really look forward to seeing what you are going to do. And, I do want to remind everybody again, I Used to Live on Banning Street is amazing. This is the image for the cover. I love the police car upside down that's burning. That is very, very eloquent. And you know what, guys? You can actually, you can go find it through deborah.donahue.info. You can also find it on Kobo, Kindle, Amazon.ca, eBay.com, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, Chapters Indigo as well. And don't think that just because you don't have a Kobo or a Kindle that you can't order it. I ordered my copy from Amazon.ca and it was converted into Kindle for Android. So it's really easy to read. It's fantastic. And guys, you're supporting an amazing artist when you buy Deborah's book because it is absolutely fantastic. And I cannot push it enough. I'm going to put together my playlist so I can read it a third time because I really, really enjoyed it. But Deborah, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. You are just absolutely lovely, and you are such a fantastic writer.
Thank you very much, Liz.
You've been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing what you do in the future. I hope to have you on here again. Perhaps we'll do a little, live to air from your book launch or something like that in the future.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be awesome, actually. Yeah.
That would be fantastic, and it would be something really exciting to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
If you need to reach Deborah, you can reach her through me or through her website as well. Deborah, don't go away. I'm going to keep you here for just another moment. I'm just going to put that on again because I love that cover. It's the best cover ever. Deborah, thank you so much.
I designed the cover too.
It's fantastic. It stands out beautifully and it says everything you need to say. And I know everybody tonight has really loved everything you've had to say here. Jim is saying, thanks so much. I can't wait to read the book. Jim, I can't wait to hear what you think of it. Maybe we'll do a little book club.
Hey, yeah, there you go.
Okay, book club. Why not? Oh my
God.
I'd be down for that. Deborah, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Liz.
Be well.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks. Guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know we had a bit of a late start just because of technical difficulties and things going crazy. My computer's going crazy already tonight. I don't know what's happening, but that is the beauty of live to air. So I want to thank you all. We're going to have another great guest next week. go get your book, and we'll do a little bit of a punk rock book club coming up in the future. Otherwise, I want you guys to take care, be well, and remember to tune in, turn on, and take part, because you never know just who's going to land right here on Planet Lizzdom. Be well, everybody. I'll see you next week.